Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Adir Ferreira, and today we're gonna have an English-only conversation with the one and only Chris Wilson. Is he Brazilian? Is he American? We don't know where he comes from, but he's gonna tell us a little bit about his story, and he's here to teach us some cool expressions in English that he told me are not very common.
They're common, they're just not the expressions that most people get taught.
And he's here to fill that linguistic gap for you guys today.
Hey everybody.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Adir, thanks for having me. It's always so fun to do stuff with you, man. I like it.
And people don't know that you were already here on the channel like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while, but it was a good time.
Yeah, it was. We talked about pronunciation, and we had an idiom off thing, like an idiom off, like kind of thing, pronunciation thing too. Yeah, right. You remember that? Okay, so for those people who still don't know you, who are you? Where do you come from? How come you don't have an accent in either English or Portuguese? That's so weird.
Well, I'm American. I was born and raised. I'm what you call an early bilingual. So I was actually born in the United States, but came very young to Brazil the first time when I was 10 months old. But I stayed 4 years, went back there, came back here, went back there, came back here, went back and forth. So I have about a little over half my life in Brazil, actually. And so it just helped me develop both languages with very little accent, which is great. I can fake an accent, but I don't usually have one. It's fun to do, though. It's fun. My brother and I, we always used to have fun translating expressions that make no sense when you translate them. So, it takes you a second. You're like, what? Oh, so that was fun. My brother and I used to do that.
So we're going to start off. Chris is going to teach us some very cool idioms, idiomatic expressions, which you don't get taught in courses or even YouTube videos. I'm being very bold saying this here. But Chris, what's the first expression that you're going to teach us?
Well, actually, I wouldn't say they're all idiomatic expressions by any stretch because they're expressions. There are a couple phrasal verbs, a couple expressions, but the old saying goes, nothing's new under the sun. So I'm sure somewhere somebody has taught them. I mean, nothing's new, but I just don't see people in courses teaching these kinds of expressions. The first, and it's very dear to my heart, is an expression, down here, when you buy alcohol or you buy beer or something like that, you buy liters, and in the United States nowadays also, it's one of the only things that they use the metric system, but it didn't always used to be that way. So in the United States, when you buy like whiskey, you buy a fifth. And so you say, oh yeah, what'd you bring to the party? Oh, I brought a fifth of whiskey and a fifth of rum. And that fifth nowadays translates to a bottle of about 750 milliliters. But the expression came about because, they used to sell quarts. There are 4 quarts in 1 gallon, 4 quarts in 1 gallon, but they would divide a gallon into 5 quarts. So a quart would actually have a little bit less. And it was that way because of wholesale and retail. So when you would buy a fifth, you would buy a fifth of a gallon because it's a little less than a quart. So anyway, you buy a fifth of whiskey in the United States. So if you hear that, now you know what it is.
What's the second expression? Sorry. Oh, we're hydrating now. Yes, we're hydrating.
Oh, man. Okay, sorry. The second one is, and I think you have probably heard most of these, Adir, but maybe some of your viewers haven't. When you say that something is someone's brainchild, we use the expression a brainchild when it's someone's project, but usually it's talking about an especially promising idea or a long-awaited prototype of a product. So when you say, like you might say, we funded this operation, but it's really Adir's brainchild. So you're kind of behind the project. You're actually the idealizer. You're the person who had the idea. You really put it all together. They just gave you the money. right? So we funded the product, but it's Adir's brainchild.
Right. How would you say that in Portuguese? Is there even an expression for that?
I don't know. I don't know. But as you know very well, as we always laugh about, you don't really translate expressions most of the time. So I don't know. I really don't.
A brainchild. I like that one too. Okay, so a fifth and a brainchild. What's the next one?
Well, we have an expression in English where you say that a person or a situation is touchy feely. So to touch and to feel. But when you say it's hyphenated, when you say that something is touchy feely, usually it means that a person is very prone to being guided by emotion, or they're almost overly empathetic. Now, being empathetic is usually good, but if you're overly empathetic, you're too affected by something almost. So you might say, I'm more of a numbers guy. I'm not really into all that touchy-feely stuff. So I'm more of a statistics and numbers person, hard facts, not that touchy-feely kind of emotions and, So that's one way to use it. Or you could say, yeah, Adir is really touchy-feely. I mean, he cries about anything at the movies.
All right, I got that.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Would that be someone who is overly sensitive?
It could be. Yes, but it has a little bit different connotation. Touchy-feely, it almost has a little bit of a negative connotation. It's not bad, but if you're saying touchy-feely instead of oversensitive or very sensitive, then it's usually because you aren't that way.
So if talking about a subject hits a nerve, I can be touchy-feely about it. Or
Yes,
yeah. Be touchy-feely about it. I'm usually not comfortable with that. I have very strong emotion. I feel very strongly about that. So it's a touchy-feely subject.
Yes, it's not as often used to talk about a contrary belief or a strong ideological stance. It's usually more about affectionate emotions and sharing how you feel and letting people see inside of your inner emotional self. You know what I mean? So it's more about kind of that, I don't know, love and affection and romance or relationships, stuff like that.
Okay, well, would that be related to a drama queen kind of stuff? If you're touchy feely,
it's all kind of interrelated. It really is contextual. It depends like how you use it, where you hear it.
Touchy feely. Okay, so we have fifth, we have brainchild, we have touchy feely. What else have you got to teach us?
Ah, man, we could go all day. Okay, here's one.
Two more.
Oh man, I got so many. Oh man, I gotta get a good one. All right. To play possum. I like this one. To play
what
possum.
What the hell is to play possum?
Well, first, what is a possum? There's an animal. It's called an opossum, but they cut the O off the beginning and they just call it a possum. It looks like what Brazilians call a gambá, but in English, a skunk is not a Brazilian gambá. So if you look up opossum, you'll see what I'm talking about. But to play possum is, possums, they pretend that they're dead sometimes when they're in danger. So to play possum, it actually means more than playing dead. It means that you either pretend that you're dead or you pretend, like, for example, there was a really famous fight where Nick Diaz and Jeremy Jackson, they were fighting for the third time. And Jeremy Jackson hit Nick Diaz with a really good shot. And Nick Diaz went like he was hurt. And then Jeremy Jackson came closer and he goes, boom. So he played possum. He pretended he was hurt to draw in his, and then he hit him. But it can also mean like when you pretend that you're unaware of a situation. You pretend that you don't know so that you don't have to deal with it, for example.
Fazer o desentendido in português.
Yep.
I like that one too.
To play possum, it has that connotation of tricking someone. Se fazer desentendido, playing possum, você se faz desentendido. But se fazer desentendido doesn't have that connotation of getting ahead, of tricking the person, When you say that something gets your goat, This
Oh,
is another animal one, a goat.
what gets your goat?
What gets my goat? When
Yeah.
people try to turn left from the right-hand lane, that really
Oh.
gets my goat.
And
Yeah.
what does get your goat mean? Actually, you get angry or get pissed or what?
Annoyed. It can be angry also, but it usually means irritated, annoyed.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than angry, right? Okay, so get it gets my goat. I hate it with every fiber of my
Well,
being.
no, it's a little less than angry. People, lots of things. There are lots of great examples with traffic, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people who drive too slow in the fast lane.
Yes.
That really gets my goat.
Yes. Sometimes touchy-feely people get my goat, so
Okay. When you use that expression, lots of times it comes after a situation and it's a standalone expression. So you would say, oh, blah, 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 blah happened. And then somebody says, yeah, that really gets my goat. That's the way that it's used the most. You just say it about something that was talked about. It doesn't usually come in the same sentence as the thing. Like, people driving slow in the fast lane really get my goat. You can say it, everyone will understand. It's just not how it's used most often.
Chris, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Adir,
See you.
super pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Take care, brother.